Hey there, it is Tuesday afternoon. I just came out to confirm a couple things with my long bar clamp design. I've been all morning drawing the plans for this. I know that in the last video I talked about building the new quick release ice, but I kind of went back on that, and I'm going to put that on hold until I get this done, because I've actually had this like on my to-do list longer. In practical terms, it's more urgent that I get this one done. So I wanted to do it and get it done. And I don't know if it's going to happen this weekend. Probably not. There's a lot of work involved in making a plan. So it'll probably be next weekend. And that'll give me time to make sure that I get everything done correctly. Okay? Optimize, right? I also wanted to tidy up the shop a little bit to get up off, my ass for, half an hour or so, to get the blood flowing. In that video, the last video, I had a request from a viewer to do a non-woodworking vlog. And so if you're not interested in that kind of thing, if you're only interested in me talking about woodworking, you can tune out now. I don't want to hear any complaints. If I see any complaints from people complaining about the topic of this video, I will delete them. So don't bother. You're wasting your time. I will delete it. Anyway, I'm going to talk about Canada because I live in Canada. I was born here in 1966. And 1966 was kind of like the apex for Canada. When I look at it, okay? When I look at it, I don't care about what anybody else looks at it. I kind of see like Canada started out more or less as a camp, People would come here to hunt, trap, and fish, and they set up little communities that they would stay in until they had all that done, and then they would go back to where they came from. And then eventually some people actually stayed here, but I don't think any real identity came out of that, not early on anyway. And still today, like, Canadians don't have the same sense of identity as, say, people in the US. We know we're different, we feel that we're distinct, but really don't have, something to pin down the identity. So 1966 was kind of building up towards that, right? I think that was kind of the pinnacle of that, because more or less what I see after that is that it kind of either tailed off or it dropped off completely, over the past few years. The other thing is economic kind of thing. Economics are never good here. We're never great. If you look at a country like a business, which most countries should be looked at that way, it wasn't being managed correctly. Big country, lots of land mass, relatively small population, and a huge number of resources. Never properly managed. And the biggest aspect of that was never properly managed was the fact that we are just north of the biggest economy in the world, and that is the way it's been for the past 100 years. I mean, if you're a good business manager, all right, you're going to see that opportunity there, and this would be the wealthiest country on the planet today. Absolutely the wealthiest, if we had made that change back then. If we had geared our economy to service that one and built everything else around it, the political system, everything. The main focus was to service that economy. Never happened. Never happened. Instead of that, we just did what everybody else does, kind of follow the leader type thing. Whatever they're doing over there, that's good for them. Let's do the same thing. Because I'll tell you, the people that you put in charge, the people that want to be in charge, don't have any imagination. They aren't able to think of anything new. They're not willing to try anything new. And a big part of that, these days anyway, it's been building up to this since, 1966, I say, is that people don't want you to do anything new. the people don't want any change. They want, more of the same. And that's what, I talked about politicians and how they're the worst of the worst, but politicians are only doing what the people want. And that's the way they get elected. They promise them pie in the sky stuff. And that's what the people want to hear. They want to hear more free stuff, more free this, more free that. What are you going to do for me? That's what they want to hear. So the politicians just respond to that. That's all they do. That's all they have to do. Because ultimately what the politicians want is just to be in power. And they know that's a relatively short-term thing. And they don't have to worry about anything that comes after. They don't have to worry about, driving the national debt through the ceiling, making our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren pay for that. Imagine being born into a country and already owing like $40,000 or $50,000, because that's basically what it amounts to. So, yeah, I think it's a huge shame that the opportunity was completely bungled here to do that. I mean, the same thing holds true for the country that's directly south of the U.S., Mexico. They could have done exactly the same thing. It's the people that you put in charge that stop that from happening. It's as simple as that. I'm here today. I started doing this YouTube thing in 2011. I'm still doing it today, and I'm much better off than I was back then. Okay, back then, I was basically living not even paycheck to paycheck. I was self-employed, but to buffer in between payments of like contracts, I had a line of credit for $25,000 that would kind of bridge those gaps in between payments. So I couldn't even say I was living paycheck to paycheck because I wasn't. I was going in debt. Today, I'm completely debt-free, much better off. And the reason for that is good management of what I've got going on here. That's how it works. You manage something correctly, and it improves. It doesn't degrade. To illustrate, I'm going to put a couple of freely available graphics. You can look this up online on the screen. And the first one is government spending. And you can see the way that's going, up and up and up and up. And the next one is GDP growth, the gross domestic product. That's what your country's producing over that same period. And you can see the trend there. It's going down, down, down. And the alarming thing about that is they're not done yet. They haven't reached the end. The end is where there's no production left for them to increase their spending. You can't manage a business like that, so why do people think that you can manage a country like that? You can't, not forever. Eventually, it's going to go broke. Now, of course, there are going to be some people that continue to watch the video even though I gave that warning at the beginning and say that this is political and I shouldn't be talking about political things. This is not political, okay? This is reality. This is how things are working. And I'm talking about it because I think that it's important to try to, before it's too late, to try to change it. We're heading into a huge recession. All the signs are there, all right? We've got a massive debt problem right across the world. Everybody looked at what the U.S. is doing and said, hey, it's working for them. It'll work for us. Let's do the same thing. Even in this stupid country right here, with the stupid politicians that we have here. I talked about this recently with someone, and he compared it to going out and trying to melt all of the snow that was coming down out of the sky with his lighter, and as if to say that there's nothing a single person can do, when that's absolutely not true. If you believe that there's a problem, you should talk about it. And if you just sway one person, if you get one person thinking correctly about it, then you've made a difference. And that's the only way that change comes about, to change the people that vote for these buffoons.
You have to understand, most of these people are not ready to be unplugged. And many of them are so inert, so hopelessly dependent on the system, that they will fight to protect it. Were you listening to me, Neo? Or were you looking at the woman in the red dress?